While I gather scrap wood and work on the design, I'll tell you the story of this piece. The inspiration or need came from a small brass vase. I found this little antique store in Hartsville, South Carolina, and one of the booths had a couple small brass vases. The vases were marked $10, so I picked out the one that I thought was the nicer of the two, but now I kind of regret not buying both of them. But that's kind of the story in antiquing. My daughters tell me that brass is really popular again, and they've been buying little brass thingies and doodads at thrift stores and garage sales, so I figured they'd like this little vase. But on the 2-hour drive home, I started thinking that I could do better than just put it in a box or a bag and hand it to them. I could build something, a cool little shelf to display this brass vase. So inspiration officially found me while I was driving my truck on a rural highway through the upstate South Carolina during cotton harvesting season. One design feature for this piece is that I want to try to build it all from scraps. I've got a whole shelf full of various hardwood scraps, and I want to put those to use. See if I can avoid breaking into any big pieces of lumber to build this piece. I decided to go with walnut and poplar. Poplar is an underdog in the hardwoods game, but it really does complement a darker wood like walnut. I found this piece of live edge walnut on the shelf, and I resisted the urge to leave the live edge just because it wasn't in great shape. But I want to actually use the existing contour. I think it's a neat, natural shape. This is when my bandsaw was trying to tell me that something wasn't right, but I didn't listen. A few of the cuts were wobbly, which means that the blade was flexing, and I later figured out that I had a loose bearing on the bottom side, so it wasn't something that I could see on the bandsaw, but it was a little bit of slop between the bearings, and the blade was wandering. This project is a free design, which means that I didn't draw it up in CAD beforehand. So I'm using my old French curve set to decide how I want to cut some of the elements in this piece. I decided to include a small mirror in this piece, and luckily I had this old mirror in my glass bin. Should you grind glass or mirror on a belt sander? No, but it does work if you're just smoothing the edge a little. And you can use a fine grit sandpaper just to take those sharp corners off. This is when I need to address some small gaps and imperfections in the joint due to the wobbling bandsaw blade that I described earlier. I think these small pieces of trim become a nice design feature in the completed project.
I'm painting the back and edges of the mirror just to address any of the chips or tears in the original silvering. Scrap wood returned to the shelf for a future project. I really like this piece. It's simple, but it just looks nice. I think the walnut and poplar just look good together, and the small slice of mirror adds depth to the piece. The brass vase pops, but it also blends nicely with the dark walnut and lighter poplar. There's a lot going on in this little piece, and it draws you in to explore the different design elements and features and how it displays the brass vase. My daughters love it, so I'm glad I stopped at that little antique store in Hartsville, South Carolina on a sunny day during
cotton harvest, with my only purchase being this small brass vase. Thank you for watching. I'm Roger at Pluff Mud Wood Glass.